Okay, so I think got a few more people. I think we're just going to go ahead and get started. So basically, thank you for attending the first of the I think I can't speak for everyone here reading series. That's kind of new for me. This is the first one, so please excuse any hiccups. I basically just wanted to. It is a reader. It is a writer's series. So even though poems are kind of my way that I art uh, the longevity of my brief time here. The reading series is really for anybody that has written, should be writing, or is writing now. That's kind of how I've um, based my invites on that, or people I admire in all of those kind of respects. So you can read vignettes, excerpts from short stories, um, poems. You can sing a song if you'd like. Basically, it's your space, and that's kind of how I've uh, uh, approached this whole endeavor. If you have any inquiries during or after the reading, you can direct those to the email bluejawedsnake@gmail.com. I did put it in the chat. Um, Beyond that, you can turn your camera on, whether you're reading or not, based on your comfort level. Um, I'd ask that you keep your audio off while people are reading, unless something is very necessary to say. Then feel free to drop it in the chat or unmute yourself. As far as that goes. If you need a transcription of the reading afterward, just go ahead and email me at bluejawedsnake@gmail.com afterwards, and I'll get that transcription to you. Beyond that, also, if you want to sign up for the open mic, you can also put that in the chat. Just give your name, a note on pronunciation, and slash or dash open mic, and I'll get to that after the readers read. Kind of a layout of how it's going to go. I'll go ahead and introduce the first reader, and then that reader will read. I'll introduce the second reader. That reader will read. After both readers are done reading, I'll have a question or two for each. And if you have a question for either reader or a comment, put that in the chat, and I'll get that to the reader at that time. Beyond that, I think we're about to. I think we're good enough to get going here. So the first reader is going to be Benjamin Niespodziany. He is a Chicago-based writer whose work has appeared in the Wigleaf Top 50, Booth, Conduit, Indiana Review, and others. His debut poetry collection was released in 2022 through OK Donkey, and his novella of connected stage plays is out now with X-Ray. You can find more at neonpajamas.com. I would recommend both of those, the poetry collection and the stage plays. Both are amazing. I kind of came to Ben's writing through some response poems he'd written to mine. And then I was knocked out by his collection, No Farther at the End of the Street, which I wrote a small reflection on, and still open every now and then when I'm looking for something absurd, deceptively polite, and giddily sad, which kind of, I think, his writing is all kind of that. But yeah, I'm super excited for you to hear Ben read. And with that, I'm going to give Ben the spotlight, and you can unmute yourself whenever you're ready.
All right. Thanks so much, Barton. Really appreciate that. Before I begin, I'd like to thank Barton for asking me to read. I discovered his work in July of 2021, thanks to the poet Tom Snarsky. And since then, I've read at least one poem by Barton every single day. And that's no joke. I have 8 of his books right here. Just a continued wealth of inspiration for me, seriously. A machine of poetics. I can't think of any writers in the last 3 years who has inspired my work quite like Barton's. It's an honor to be in community with you, and it means the world to kickstart your new series. I will be reading 30 poems across 3 different manuscripts. Don't worry, that sounds daunting and overwhelming and awful, but my poems are super tiny, really small, and I timed myself earlier today, and it's right around 14 minutes, so don't get overwhelmed quite yet. The 3 manuscripts that I'll be covering, one is critical toward American authority, one is critical toward American corporations, and one is full of kind of tiny jokes and surrealist bits in order to kind of combat the other 2 more heavy topics. So maybe you can see if you can guess which one is which. They're kind of shuffled throughout. This first one is called Cakes in Various Shapes. And it was inspired by all those viral videos of people cutting stuff that looked realistic only to find out it was cake. Cakes in various shapes. The Play-Doh tote bag is a donut. The head in the purse is a pie. Please understand my confusion. The phone booth is an angel. The alien is a cake. I hate the games we play when everything must be cut. This one is called Reason for the Traffic Jam, and it's about half the size of that last one. A lit candle, or I'll start over. Reason for the traffic jam. A lit candle in the wound of a bull. This is all we know at this time. This one is called the homemade hearse. The homemade hearse was a girl's gift, a gag dish, something to lift the spirits of the grieving teenage clique. They lost so much that summer. The homemade hearse was not received well, but still accepted by the girls. It gurgled in the driveway, all fall and into winter. How tricky it is to feel anything when everything's always getting in the way. This one is called Larry, and it was previously published in The Boiler. This one is definitely critical toward authority of those three manuscripts. Authorities gave my friend Larry the chair. He was innocent. He was kind. Couldn't they see that? Society fought back by writing quiet poems tucked under summer desks. I watched him through thick glass that had been there since before we were young enough to die. His eyes were calm marbles, scissors, plastic, and dull. My God, what a year it had been. The executioner was just a kid. This one is called Urgent Care. It's common these days, local authorities say, to paint a wall red that has already been painted red. This one is called On a Night When Asked to Turn Back the Clocks. And I think it was written around daylight savings, even though it has nothing to do with daylight savings. On a night when asked to turn back the clocks. He died in the middle of the street. Normal kid, siblings, 3, kind giant, tiny eyes. His heart stopped, broken heart. Officials arrived and coated the kid in bullets, rolled bullets onto his shirt, into his pockets, behind his quiet ears. What happened? City members asked, gathering around the now body, now coated in cold bullets, bullets in his open hands, bullets in his socks, bullets, the city officials said, bullets, the city members repeated, bullets, the bullets agreed. This one is called The History of the United States in 15 Minutes, and it was inspired by a prompt by Vicky Now, who I highly recommend. The History of the United States in 15 Minutes. One guy arrived, tipped over a jug, killed a widow, signed a birch, cursed a town, announced limitations to speed, smiled but did not show his teeth, chiseled a statue, belittled tourists seeing the fuss, punched a window to welcome the wind, had massive kids. That's it. This one's called ACAB Includes the DMV. The sturdy hearseman was cursing the DMV Employee of the Week. Everyone else was sleeping in their seats, a discarded sneaker on the ear of a chair. This one is called 6 Attempts Against Revolution. 1. We're using one writing utensil to spell revolution. It takes us 8 years. Many other revolutions have formed and been abandoned during this time. 2. A landmine obliterates our favorite neighborhood cat. 3. All policemen are polluted. We shred them in our sinks. 4. Your revolution is boring. Ours is unimportant, but ours is torchlit. 5. Your revolution is forming in the pub. Our revolution is bleeding on the moon. 6. The swamp forms one long revolution. We slide in as the song begins. This one is called Executive. It's kind of like a sequel to the earlier one about the execution scene. Sorry, I swear there'll be some lighter ones later on. Executive. The executioner uses a ruler he sharpened on his walk to work. The department is low on supplies, syringe appointments and poisonous ointments. When the felon sees the sharpened ruler, he sings a song of longing. The tears are natural. They sound just how we feel. This one is untitled. Vines wrap the barnyard. A police officer is seen being eaten by a dragon on live television during an extended special segment called Heaven. This one is called Origin Story. TNT sneezes on gunpowder, and thus thunder is invented. Every storm is the government simply mixing more bombs with more clouds. This one is called The Comedian. And I feel like I have like 20 poems called The Comedian, so I'm not sure if they all talk to each other or how that works. The Comedian. The comedian swallowed a townhouse door handle shortly after announcing his run for president. No one knew what to expect or what would become of him. No one knew he'd be such a great dad. This one is called Robot. Yeah, and it was recently accepted over at New Delta Review as fiction. I'm not sure if it's a poem or a prose poem or a short story. I was kind of riffing off of AI creating writing. So I tried to pretend to be a robot while writing, but there was no like chat GPT or anything like that. This is all me, but it's called Robot. Robot. A robot wrote my poem, not this poem, a worse poem, a more robotic poem, less humanistic poem. I felt more alone reading it. Do I need to explain more? This is not the robot poem. On you, I would never pull that kind of trick. A robot wrote my poem, not this poem, another poem, a worse poem, more robotic poem, less humanistic poem. I felt more alone reading it. It was about a mountain. Do I need to explain more? An accountant fell to his death. Wires nowhere to be found. I'm announcing it now. This isn't the robot poem. I'm sorry. I'm not a hat inside of a rabbit. A robot wrote my poem, not this poem, another poem, a worse poem, a more robotic poem, a less humanistic poem. I felt more alone when reading it. It was about a mountain. It was about an accountant who fell to his death. His stomach so full of wires, my God, I could never. A robot wrote this poem. Is this not fiction? Another poem followed by another poem, none of them bad at all. There are so many robotic poems in the world, so why not add one more? I've promised you a personal poem, but I felt lonely reading the draft, so I scrapped it and I moved on. I recommend you do the same. This is a poem about a mountain. Do I need to detail more? The only news to soothe my demise, cables wrapped around trees. I'll let you know whatever it is you need, whatever it is you ask. This is the robot poem indeed. Unhuman, right? Couldn't you tell? I'll always pull such stunts. That was definitely the longest of the ones I'll be reading today. This next one is like 20 words, and it's based on the Angolan film that came out in 2020 called Air Conditioner, where air conditioner units start falling from the sky and killing people. Highly recommended movie, very strange. It's called Create Chaos Along the Walls. Bury the typewriter next to the wine. Find the staplers and bury them too. Holiday lights, VHS tapes, stripped cables, string. Our national anthem is a dead car full of live plants. This one is untitled, and it is after our host, Barton. Untitled. They fired at the deer and they killed the deer, and as they skinned it for dinner, they found staples and sutures and stitches, and a kid no older than you living in the middle with both a flashlight and a knife. This one is called Evening Meal, and definitely falls into the Critical Corporation manuscript. Evening Meal. Most, if not all, of my finances are tied up in pilot lights. Big Pilot Light has tried in my pockets, and Big Pilot Light might win. If this is the last of me, let it be known I'm pretty sure I broke my left foot middle toe back in March, and still it waits to heal. The dismal air will continue for another some minutes. 6 children outside my window, passing around a box of matches. No one has the courage to light. This one is called Finale, and it is not the finale. I have a couple more pages. Finale. And when the maids were finished cleaning the dying billionaire's mansion, they shaved each other's heads and stuffed their hair down his sinks. This one is called Bacon Cheddar Cheese Combo, and it is like 11 words. On Mondays, garbage is in charge of gardening. Significance does the dishes. I rinse the onions. Data digs a hole. This one is called We Scared Away All of the Crows, and it's in the recent issue of Afternoon Visitor, which is a great journal, highly recommend. We scared away all of the crows, and it's one long sentence, so let's see if I can do this. I don't feel like stitching scarecrows together anymore. And no, I don't have anything better to do. And it's not you. It's just these scarecrows don't know us like we know us. And stitching them together is really taking up our time. And it was fine at first. It was fun, but it's run its course. Of course, we can do other things together. It's not you, it's the scaring. And I don't have any better ideas, but stitching scarecrows is only going to scare more crows. And no one has seen a crow in over a year. And don't we want them back? This one is called Hiatus, and it's about writing a really bad poem after taking a long break, but how it still feels good. The author didn't write for a decade, and when he did, it was about a splinter in his foot, crooked underneath his big toe. The poem was a 1 sentence long statement, 300 pages. Everyone hated it, but it helped. This one is called Tradition. We're wrecking dinner by giving away the ending of the meal. We're wrecking dessert by spoiling the future movie. We're spoiling the future movie by ordering more appetizers. The trumpet blurts, this is the 4th time the earth has tried to start over. The world floats a little too close to the sun, so we don't know where to run. It's fine, we whisper, holding hands the entire world over. The oldest turtle falls from the sky for the most precious object to stage a filmed death, only to get up and walk slowly home. What does it mean to see someone rise from the dead and not try to eat you? What does it mean to be infinite for a minute and a half? The cameras capture the moment when our eyes reopen, and everyone knows the flat line was a landmine, a capsized gimmick too large for this century to ever fathom. This one is called Not Laughing. The woman was almost dead when the assassin ran her over with a snowblower. At the funeral, they brought out a very long coffin, longer than a ladder. It was sadder that way, imagining her stretched out like that. A snowblower, we all know, is one hell of an invention. Couple more. Oh my God, the chat's going crazy. I'll read these later. So this prompt is based on taking 6 emojis at random and then turning that into a short story. And I have 2 of these, so I'll share the emojis in the chat and you can follow along. We've learned just yesterday the world is made of sand. We don't have long. The clowns have stopped being clowns. The businessmen can't stop crying. Wives are marrying each other and lovers are hunkering under storms. Knowing a wet sandcastle means nothing as long as it continues to rain. And this next one, I was very excited to have the vampire be one of my random ones. A vampire invented the light bulb. so the night owls could see. A candle was only for lobsters, cowering away on their blimps. A vampire swallows a light bulb and later loses his sight. A lobster walks by and takes what's left of the mess, keys to a moped, an eternal heart in an endless chest. And then I have three more super tiny little poems. These next two are inspired by the prose poet Bob Heeman. He has an ongoing series he's been doing for about 2 decades called Information. So if you search Bob Heeman on Google and just type in Bob Heeman Information, I mean, there's thousands of these prose poems on the internet. Really, really inspiring stuff. And I've been kind of looking at them and kind of creating my own pieces as well. So these are called facts. Facts. The factory builds bones, brings them together to house a home, soaks it in blood, wraps it in fur. Mr. Niespodziany, I present to you your new baby girl. Facts. A dung beetle smells like nothing while floating in outer space. Even God can't seem to get a taste, can't seem to describe an echo to a soul. And then this last one is written in response to some of Barton's poems, so I thought it'd be fitting to close with this one. It is also untitled. Untitled. God's loaned coat is being passed around at the massacre. I'm staring at the sea as if my teeth might dream. The giraffe packs a pillow. The snow globe does a leap. Thank you so much.
Oh, thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Ben. That was awesome. Yeah, I love the yeah, the heaven as an extended scene, and I love all the untitled when, as you're hearing them, the untitled is the uh least thing about them. Yeah, that was really good. Thank you so much for being here. I think we'll move on now to the writer NC Smock. So NC Smock lives and works in the community sector of Baltimore, Maryland. Sorry, I'm from Baltimore, Ohio. I almost always say Ohio when I say that, but yeah. His creative writing efforts are mostly channeled into grants for community organizations. He is currently working on a written and spoken word project, No Arrival, which is anchored by his sketches and paintings. This project will soon be available in video and audio snippets, as well as a flip book where segments can be rearranged and read in any order. The project will be published under the name Wyeth Man. I have a couple notes that I want to say about Noah as well. Full disclosure, or naked nothingness. Noah is, or NC Smock is my brother. Honestly, that's the least interesting thing about him. We're close in fake life, but very beautifully distant in how we alive our art. If one is going to name one outside of Blood and Boredom, and name them because of how their work or the way they work keeps one's hands from a sameness, NC Smock would be named on my end immediately, as when I read the vanished authorship of his work, the only thing we actually share is an exquisite siblinghood of loneliness. So that said, I'm excited to introduce and have read Noah Smock for the spotlight on.
Thank you so much. If I inspired Bart, then my contribution of literature don't under my byline because I've done quite enough. I will try to match the effort that I put on the page. I say things and hope that it comes off that I intended it. These are all going to be and the large called No Arrival is supposed to be built in a way figure that line. How you could do that, there, figure it out. Text, I imagine like a binder ring that you can just organize all these little any way and read them in any order. But with that, I will kick off here. So the first small piece would be expect of all suffering. I myself, and it's about 2 minutes. Um, so with that, the first small piece is an excerpt titled "Brief," and then everything will be from. So
Sorry to cut you off. I'm having some audio trouble from my end. I'm not sure if that's from your side or maybe close some browsers or something, but
yeah,
cutting out
is
really
everybody?
bad.
Because I can go downstairs and read this. Anybody else? Everybody?
Yeah, I think I'm having a little trouble too. I was trying to find out from other people. I think I got the gist, but yeah, you're going out a little bit. Sorry.
Okay. Well, this is live and lit, so I'm going downstairs.
Yeah, we caught
Sorry,
every third word. We caught every third word, but for the reading, we want all of them.
I probably made it better, to be honest. Okay, so I should be in a better internet situation in about 3 seconds. I'm just going to talk through so everyone can see if it's still happening. Is this okay? Is this all right?
Yeah, sounding better already.
Okay, so sorry about all that. Hopefully you could hear what Bart said, but basically I'll read a small excerpt from a work called No Brief Country, and then the rest of the pieces will be from a larger work called No Arrival. And I timed myself, it'll be about 20 minutes, 22 minutes. Brief Country. 7 bones broken, 7 healed. The scar on the back of her hand from before I knew her, the accident. What I didn't, don't, won't. Heavy eyeliner habit hidden from my lens, remnant defense, her Romanian mother, a different war. Last night's last word knows we don't have much left to give. We've spent the rush fuck of meeting and recognizing and surprised to learn. We moved in together. Forgive me, 1 second. Moved in together, used each other up, busted the charm. All jokes told twice. She stands against my spirit where the couch used to be, TV under her unplugged, rare severity pointed at the wall. I count time between stains in the clean space where we used to laugh. Legs crossed on the gone couch. Call me back now, beauty. Her taut body teaching naked to no one. The scene comes together. I cross the room in a held breath and trace her with last year's hand. Along the leg, curved to tormented torso, fact of flesh, stretched across bone. The complex scissor of her woman I can't see, back to me. This will be the last time. She permits the closing pose and will use my last lost touch against me. The moment we unravel, saving our guts from different spills. So everything else will be from a work in progress called No Arrival. And the little chapter headings, I'll just read, but they repeat and just know. I'll do my best to verbalize the breaks. Ohio. I know gnats taste like tiny soap. I know the soap stings second they fly into your eye to drown. From being 8 years old and running toward things, away from things at the edge of the woods. Mom. My mom's a liar. That's not all she is. She's 4 years old, toe touching a ripple on the surface of the water, learning how to swim in the lake where her brother drowned, where her father drowned, bodies in water and how they move. Stephanie. I have never lived alone. Brothers, roommates, girlfriends, wives. You. I have no idea how much mess one body makes. Cars. Not the accident itself, but the way I held my body after, knowing my bones could break. Ohio. The ground is uneven and you break into a run anytime, so you need to watch where your feet fall. Avoid rabbit holes, buckeyes, baseballs, bullfrogs, dog shit. Country kids look down. Marriage. We made reservation at a restaurant that was too expensive for us. Debated how to leave when we saw the prices. I wanted to stay. She shook her head and left in a rush. I tripped after in general apology to the room that asked for nothing from me. I found her crying in an alley. We argued over what we didn't and couldn't have. I could have been kinder. We went home hurt and ordered pizza, stupidly picking our pieces under puffy eyes. We overtipped the driver to show that we could do at least that. We sat silly in our poor clothes. We put them on, not knowing they'd embarrass us. Girls. I was talking to my brother last week. In and around other words, he said, "You were always good with girls because you weren't embarrassed to be poor." Baltimore, in this case, Baltimore, Maryland. Shira went first in the colder months and took the southern route to avoid snow, January 2007. The way we worked it out was I would stretch out my work in San Diego to build up time for 2 more months so I could earn hours to cover my benefits. She'd scout apartments in Baltimore on select weekends. She lived behind her dad's house in Pittsburgh, the attached apartment where her grandfather died. I would stay there for a few months too when I followed after. I finished up school and work and headed out in April. First to my friend's house in LA, where I confessed I knew nothing about the Rolling Stones, except for everything, except for Exile on Main Street. We spent all night on Sweet Virginia and what he calls big beers. "That's a big beer," he says, warning me not to fall asleep. I left in the morning as he was headed to work, and his wife, also my dear friend, cried in the driveway. I wonder, did we make the right decision in the first place? But then I was behind the wheel and back to the road math familiar. How much on this road in that hour? How many hours until this city? Where to stub my cigarette? What was too much for one day with no money? 700 miles? Route 15 to I-70, pretty much all the way across the country. LA to St. George, headed east, Utah temperatures plummeting 25 degrees in 10 minutes, and me putting my sweatshirt back on, still driving. Trying to figure out, was it snow yet or still rain? Denver, Kansas City, St. Louis, Indianapolis, Columbus for a small homecoming, and Pittsburgh for 2 months before we found our basement apartment in Baltimore. It had a large front room. The guy before us had a pool table, and I was hoping he'd leave it, but he took it down in pieces through the narrow door. The kitchen hid the dirt well, dark tiles. The laundry room looked like a stage for bad poetry with the bare bulb light overhead. I'd only been to Baltimore twice at that time, but I rolled into town with an address one weekend, coming into the city from the south, northbound on Calvert Street into Mount Vernon. Calvert Street was my first familiar mark, a brief artery only a few miles from downtown to Hopkins. I came into town on Calvert Street. I walked on it to and from work. I went to restaurants and doctors whose doors opened onto it. Always one parallel to home. I could go all the way up and down and never arrive. More than 8 years after we came to Baltimore, we marked a day on our calendars. We were assigned a courtroom number. We sat together on a terrible little bench and cried as our divorce was finalized. All the waves of everything we'd been for each other, done to each other. All the laughing, the moving across the country hungry, and the trembling silence held between us. The last thing she ever gave me was a pack of Kleenex. I cried almost as hard as on our wedding day. The magistrate said we seemed like nice people. It was good for her to see because everyone else was ugly about it. The two of us, we knew who did what to who, how we stood up for each other, and how we knocked each other down. We were sad. We had a witness who also cried. When we came out of the courtroom, out of the courthouse, we were on the Calvert Street again, except this time it was not new to us, and this time we were undone, and this time there was no hope in it. So this next one is the longest, but it's only a page and a half. So still from No Arrival. Ohio. We were there together only a few days that summer, Josh and me and Mike. I was dating Samantha and looking at October, California. Mike moved back to Pennsylvania 2 weeks after we graduated. Josh was Josh, up for the ride, no immediate. Mike went first with his sad car full of stuff, gone for real. Wheels over gravel, driveway, turning onto gravel roads. Then State Route 256 asphalt, and from there a series of slow turns and north and east until the highway, where time sped up. I was to follow later in the summer with Mike's stereo for no other reason than I had a truck and none of us had any money to spend on moving. Until then, the stereo lived in the mudroom at the farm, where we used to let the dogs in when the ice storms came. Nate was going with me to deliver Mike's stereo, always going with me. We imagined it in advance, holding a scene in our heads where we settle him into his new old state and try try to laugh and try not to drop the stereo and try not to think about the fact that 2 months earlier we were high school students and 2 months later we'd be recast as adults, all in different states. Most nights that summer, Nate and me moving in dawn-drawn silhouettes in memory of cigarettes at the farmhouse among the mice that got bolder every hour, less people around, less food except for the mice, whatever we dropped under the stove last year. We aimed at a weekend in early August to take Mike his music machine. I packed up my truck the night before, laying everything flat on top of bags of salt I used to weigh down the back of the bed to keep it from fishtailing on country roads. I was at Samantha's that night. Nate was coming over to save me from playing darts in her basement for the rest of my life. He came in like he always did, no knock and laughing like he just got away with something. Not alone this time, but shadowed by a perfect stranger named John Giannis, some small Greek god Nate picked up hitchhiking. The story was he was headed from his childhood home in Juneau, Alaska to New York City to look for his dad. Alaska and New York were about as far away from each other and Ohio as we could imagine, so we almost believed him. Samantha got mad at Nate for bringing a serial killer into her house, but we all got along and John could buy us a beer, so we left. Samantha stayed home and I kissed her goodbye because I was leaving tomorrow first thing for Pennsylvania and I didn't have time for her to be upset. She wasn't. She liked when we were characters in a movie, older and more serious than we really were. Always in a movie, always farewell. The scene of boys at adventure suited her country idea of passage into maturity. So if I was a man, she was a woman. She was right about most of that for the wrong reasons. We got our beer and talked as if we had taste in beer. We went back to the farm. I wanted to stay out of the house because here was a guest and I had recently become embarrassed by the paint peeling doorways and the mice and the empty, but didn't admit that to myself until much later. We stayed outdoors, poking around, smoking in the outbuildings and touching the wall in the shelter house where there'd been a fire the year before. New wood had been laid. We scratched our initials into the wall with an old knife I kept on the windowsill. When I was 10, I'd busted the same window in brittle shards with as many rocks as I could find, loaded into a slingshot that broke later when I threw it at my brother. Later winters, I came to regret this when we tried to keep warm there. That cold I made when I was 10 was the same reason someone overfed the wood-burning stove when I was 18. The fire got out of control, and now the smell of burn mixed with new wood. Box of mostly unused screws and still in the corner. It was summer now, everything singing at night in the woods and the pond. The locked land, fat with bullfrogs, cricket song, other sounds I had no idea I was about to miss. Shoes shuffling to collect kindling in the crack of dry but humid wood on flame. August, the corn was up. The wind came through in rushes. The promise of that cross breeze we were always trying to catch. Some nights in August, Ohio, the heat breathes and holds. You could go dumb in the swollen stillness. Other nights you actually catch a chill. You carry with you long sleeves in your bag on your back seat. Slide them on and wait for dew to crystal on the grass even though it's summer. Your new school shoes get wet even though it doesn't rain as you walk through the field in the morning. When you stay up all night in August, Ohio, you come up with different truths about the air. We didn't know which kind of night this was because we got drunk and something was bound to be too hot, wet, dry, cool, all of it around and none to be felt. Around 2 a.m., we hopped a low barbed wire fence in the cornfields with this challenge. Walk one direction each. Try not to get lost. Walk until you find something. A stream, a dog, a body. Come back. Report. We claimed our direction. John north, Nate south, me west. We could hear each other knocking stalks and cursing. My eyes started to swell because I was allergic to corn silk or something that came to rest on corn silk. I began to laugh like I always did at some point in the night with Nate. Everyone's noise was getting farther away and my laughing felt too loud. I started to worry that Nate would lay down and try to go to sleep. He could sleep anywhere. We'd be a long time trying to find him. He might die drunk, lost, and face down in this field, corn mud drying on the leg of his jeans. I stopped, listened to the blood pulse in my temples. Drunk rush interrupted by my own throat yelling out names. Nate, Josh. Nate, John, Nate. Right away, I heard back from both. All still alive and actually pretty close, but felt far away because of the corn and the quiet and the spin that came in if you turned your head or tried to run. I started to laugh again and I called out, John, hey, John. Yeah? You fucking Greek god, you axe murderer. I realized I didn't want everyone to keep walking. The night would end quickly and stupid if we kept moving away from each other. I told everyone to get back over the fence. I had something important to ask John. We weren't as far away as any of us thought. They were both running roughly parallel to the fence. I was the last stumble home. Out of breath, almost out of beer and time. John asked, what did I want to know? Right, yeah, man, I was out there walking and I started thinking, are these cornfields anything like the cornfields in Alaska? He cut his eyes over his cigarette. Yeah, man, they are. Exactly like the cornfields in Alaska. Are they for real? You bet. There's no cornfields in Alaska. Of course there are. We fell asleep in the shelter house on hay bales a little while later, bone weary, full of bad angles, scratches, catches of dreams we'd never claim. We woke at a 6 a.m. stagger, more uncomfortable than awake. The morning gave us back our shadows. We stepped into the strange light and asked for forgiveness. We didn't know who we were asking, but we knew what we were asking it for being too loud, for being hungry without a plan for food, for not knowing what came next. We took off still stiff and got where we were going. We dropped John off around 5 p.m. at some large country house in a place I can't recall between West Virginia and Pennsylvania. We got to Old Man Mike around 7:30. We hugged and joked and forgot to be tired. At one point, Mike looked at me very seriously and said, "It's a good thing it didn't rain." Ohio. It's easier to run barefoot on gravel than it is to walk barefoot on gravel. Stephanie. If I die suddenly, there's a file on my computer containing methodical instructions on the order and logic of how to clean the kitchen, if you want to honor me. Marriage. I left my marriage like my dad left his marriage. Different reasons, same pains, same secret knowing, picking the day to break the news. It was the worst day except for the day before it. She left home like every other morning. Coffee, appointments, vague expectations about the evening. I packed bags, loaded my trunk, sat on the couch, sat at the table, thought about where I should sit. There were a couple hours between packing and going. I couldn't concentrate on anything. I played Angry Birds on our Roku, when Roku came with Angry Birds. I was sad and crying and playing Angry Birds, and I never wanted that door to open, and I wanted that door to open right now. I heard her pull up and look down at her getting out of her car. I think about it now and taste metal and blue as she takes forever up the normal stairs I'm about to go down forward. I feel bad for that man, and I feel bad for that woman, churned up in time. Just a couple more. God. It would not bother me if I found out I was a robot, blood and guts machine with limited electricity. I still look forward to lunch. Stephanie. The week you stocked up on all the new food I needed to stay alive was the same week I held you at night on the side of the bed. When we learned, sorry. I get nervous and then I get like emotional. And I realize how much I cry and like what I've written here. Anyway, I'm gonna keep going. The week you stocked up on all the food I needed to stay alive was the same week I held you at night on the side of the bed when we learned your dad died. A call that time of night from that number. We knew and answered hoping not. We felt time and embrace and no one stopped shaking. Marriage. In our last summer, Shira got us tickets to see Deer Tick at a brewery in Frederick. But the day before the show, I estimated my brother's stepdad, John, only had a few hours of air left, and I realized I could make it to Ohio driving overnight for a farewell. I sped across Maryland, West Virginia to Ohio by 2 a.m. It was June. It was allergies in full bloom, and I was crying. I got pulled over for going 90 in the dead night flat country and decided to sit there and take it without saying anything. The cop thought I was high, but I passed a field sobriety test and kept going with a ticket in the glove box. The only one ever since that other time I was a teenager in the same but different Ohio. John died that Thursday. We missed the Deer Tick show for Goodbye, Ohio. We didn't know it was the last we'd never see together. Just a couple more. Divorce. My brother visits, and I parallel park his car in a tight spot in front of a house that has a couch in the back room that I do not always sleep on. The trip was fine, just the late street stacked and seemed to speed up, and the sky that followed 450 miles was interrupted by buildings and the convention crowd and the humidity. Not like he hasn't been here before, but not on short notice, and just a lot of cold in the coffee cup and a fair stretch of road between morning and mid-afternoon, and now, because the blue night is up. On that subject, what, anyway, is up? At one point at the table, we're both sitting, though he threatens to stand, and we talk about our heads of different hair, but for the mannerisms not known to be brothers, not always the same angers. His hair and mine, though, are both found to have 5 colors on closer inspection. An experiment I dream only under this table when I go to pick up the missing cap from my found beer. 5 colors, some mix of mother and father, distance from birth. An Irishman, Sicilian, and Cherokee chief walk into a bar and kick a Dutchman's ass. It's a dead joke mix of words I use and words I never use, but use anyway. No, sorry. It's a dead joke mutt mix of words I never use and words I always use, but use anyway. That stutter start and shudder stop, the throat and the eyes giving away the gravity that sucks our feet to the same ground. There are lines I will never give up, the muscle memory of athletes who once made cause for cameras and gazetteers. Few friends, but some would understand that we were athletes. I refuse to examine my own hair in the mirror. There will be later time for that, and there will be later time for that, as I also refuse to cut it. I ignore the fact that I recall and agree with the lie that my dad told my mom to keep her from mirrors altogether. My brother doesn't repeat his question, so I leave it in the air with as complete a silence. And I don't say anything, but my hand shakes to cut the music when I park his car, because all singers of songs are clingy, heart hustler crybabies, and I can't hum unless I want to lie right along. If I still read books, at least they're thick enough. I take his keys, swing into the space I planned for him. I adjust, and still not even close. I've planned it wrong. He's shorter than me by 4 important inches, but I don't touch the mirrors. I park twice and am happy to keep going, though he'll need another brother to get it out. In trying to plan for the getaway, I interrupt and am interrupted. Just a couple more. Stephanie, come here. I want to put my electricity head next to yours and steal your current and your headaches. Ohio. When I was in junior high, I babysat for 2 couples who were going to marriage counseling. My mom filled me in on this. It seemed to be the man's fault in both cases. I got close with one of the dads when we found out we were into the same music. He started taking me to these bootleg record shows they'd hold in cheap hotel lobbies. The vendors were all middle-aged men who were wary of each other. I babysat for the family irregularly for over a year and spent time with the dad on weekends. I helped him move into his office, a new office once when he got a new job. When his desk chair was set up, when his desk was completely set up, he sat in a swivel chair and said this was as good a place to start as any other. I didn't know much about that. A few weeks after he killed himself, his wife drove up our long driveway with a car full of records, CDs, and books. She gave me his collections. I recognized records he bought when I was with him. I always thought he had so much money. It was a hard inheritance, awkward armfuls of his dead stuff coming into my house through the busted back door. I didn't go to his funeral, and I'm not sure why. No one ever told me the details. Every year or so, I look up his son on Facebook to see who he is. I don't think he would remember me, and if he did, it'd be in some distant past of when his dad was alive, a minor character of a gone time. He's 34, looks exactly like his father. Seems to be doing okay. Dad. My dad is a liar. That's not all he is. He's not his father's favorite or even second favorite, and he knows it. Now, read, adjust, adapt. The room, the volume, the man. No arrival. No journey as arrival. Just forward time and forward body sped up or slowed to the pace of the folds on my face. Old as I've ever been, young as I'll ever be. That's it. Sorry for the technical problems.
Well, that's fine. No problem. Yeah, that was amazing. Thank you for I hadn't heard a lot of that work. Yeah, that was really special. Thank you for being part of this. And I guess I'm going to move on now to question I have for Ben. I'm sorry to put you on the spot like this. I thought it'd be cool to have a couple questions for each and just have a conversation. But yeah, Ben, we've gone back and forth. I think the response poems a bit. It occurred to me that incorporating another's work into a chorus of your own, outside of just passive influence is sort of like a bastardization of translation, in that in doing so we're both kind of using the same words to display the same words, but with it, but not the same like utterance or ambiance. And when speaking for myself, I see it as sort of this like hermetic interpretation that allows me to do whatever I want in that space. It's like how structure kind of frees you up. But I worry sometimes that I'm drawing a border when I know all borders are actually imaginary. And I was just wondering, how do you balance or approach a response poem, and do you worry about those same things, or do you have different worries when you're doing a response poem?
I love that question. And I think it's different for each time that I'm writing. I think sometimes I will be almost like for example, I might read like 4 or 5 of your poems, and then I kind of just have that mood or that mode. If there's other authors, I'll read a whole book of theirs, and then afterwards you just kind of want to write like them or write with that similar style. A lot of your pieces are very surreal, or there's a lot of mentions of God. So if I read 10 Barton poems, I might be writing about God right after that, right? Or if there's somebody like James Tate, it might want to be a little bit more funny or something like that. And then other times, I learned this from Zachary Schomburg, where you're supposed to kind of blind yourself from the rest of the poem and then just write a response line. So I'll read the first line, and then it's almost like I'll write a response to that, kind of guessing or what I think might go next. And then I'll do that with the next line and the next line. And then it'll be all of my own lines, but they're in response to each line. And when I do that, I'll often like put, for or after, or kind of put a nod to the author, because it's kind of in that direct conversation. And then other times I'll do imitation poems where I'll try to make it look very similar, kind of mirror what they're doing, same lines, same syllables, that kind of thing, almost like my own take on it. So maybe somebody writes about Baltimore, Ohio, and then I kind of make it into South Bend, Indiana, where I grew up, and kind of turn that into my own little piece as well. So it's a mixture of like imitation poems mixed with inspiration poems. But I've never worried about copying or stealing someone's voice. And if I feel like I get too close to that line, like you said, then I often just kind of put, for Barton Smock, or after Barton Smock, or after Barton Smock's untitled poem from this book. If I'm really, if I really feel like I'm like touching, tiptoeing too closely to that original piece. But I'm constantly kind of giving credit and acknowledging other poets, and kind of feeling, if I'm in that community and surrounded by other poets, it almost gives me more life.
Yeah,
So I think most of my poems are kind of riffing off of other poets.
Yeah, I'd agree. I'd say most are response poems, whether you label them that way or not. I think it's interesting when we were going back and forth. At some point, it got so blurred. I was like, I felt like I was like plagiarizing myself. Like at some point, which you kind of do like anyway. But yeah, absolutely. Thank you for fielding that question. And
Of course, thank you. Yeah, that's a great one. Yeah, and I think I have a manuscript of kind of Barton style poems. I think it's 80 pages at this point, and it's called "Pour Your King Trash Down My Throat," and it's
yeah.
still a very strong work in progress. But yeah, it's such a generative process to kind of mirror your work or try to find inspiration with your daily posts.
Yeah,
So
I
thank
think
you
I owe
for
you. I
that.
think I owe you some. I think I owe you quite a few response
One or two.
poems, one or two. But all right, thank you. And then Noah, or I had a question. Kind of building also on how structure can be kind of freeing, because kind of already know the rules and the etiquette. I was curious, when you are grant writing, or writing anything, drawing people toward the work you do at the Baltimore Tool Bank. um, how do you approach or handle the difficulty that's inherent in balancing audience and impulse? How do you you stay on task concretely without getting like granularly abstract, being being where writing usually takes you? Like, is that like yeah, so I was just curious to your approach, or how you handle that, or if that's sometimes a negative or a positive in that respect.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that question. Grant writing is awesome because you already have an audience. Like, now, whether they like it or not is totally different. But honesty is kind of the grounding thing. And so I will also say I read a lot of grants, and I feel like on the funding side, there's this power dynamic that's totally awful and needs to go. We often, friends of mine that write grants say that we know the game and we can play it okay, but we kind of hate it. And I think probably Benjamin, to some of the things that you write about, the power structures. I would be spiritually akin while still trying to garner enough money to run a thing that I think needs to exist. But the cool thing about writing grants sometimes is honesty does get rewarded. Like, I will be the first to say that I don't know what it means to people in Baltimore City to, like, I can't quantify how many people a gallon of water that doesn't become pollution helps how many people. That's what grantors want, but they're all the wrong questions in some ways, but we don't have better ones. This is a rambling answer, I'm aware, but I think because I read so many grants and people are fearful when they write grants, I take a different approach. I write a grant like a threat. Like, if you are not behind this, we don't have these things, and we fight for them. And we think that this is an investment vehicle rather than an appeal. And that helps me clarify all the things that don't need to be there, because creative writing, like, I try to be a little more concise in creative writing and not, I don't know, flowery or indulgent. But yeah, there's no space for my changing voices, tones, tenses in 3 lines in a grant, and it's different. It is a balance, but that's also why I think I feel out of practice just writing something creative, because everything I'm doing is trying to, like, have a very direct outcome, which is, not always give us money, but be a partner in the work that we do.
All right. Yeah, excellent answer. Yeah, I think that's an interesting thing that you noted about kind of in writing poetry as well. Writing poetry, like doing that kind of thing, it feels like an appeal. You're making an appeal to people to at least enter with you. But then sometimes even in doing that, you're also asking for a straight ahead investment in your obsessions and stuff. So yeah, thank you for that answer. And yeah, and I think with that, we did have one person sign up for the open mic, Mike Bagwell, who I've never met in person, but I know virtually. If you had something to read, let me get
Well,
up here.
it's a little silly with all of these amazing poets in the room to be the only open micer. I mean, sure. Yeah, so I have well, I want to say just like that was really amazing. Thanks for doing this. I'm gonna definitely attend all of these in the near future. And yeah, thanks. It's great meeting you all virtually. But yeah, I have this collection, this long poem that I'm working on called Poem of Thanks. And yeah, this is the first part of it. It's something like 75 pages at the moment. So it's like feeling kind of almost done. And some parts of it will be coming out kind of soon in small chapbook form and that kind of thing. But yeah, so this is part 1, and it's like it's got like little subtitle bits, but yeah. The reverse star. One time we'd run out of rubber bands. My handwriting dropped its oars to gravity. We'd find the sea that had always been under our lives. How could we not, with a white demi-crown of stars and wind on our side? Many unions will go on strike tomorrow, including the Union for the Blue Heart of the Sky and its arteries of birds, including the Union for the oars let down in the letter P. I'm still around. Might be the first time I've admitted as much. It feels so, so, so good. We must be winning. No one has died, will ever die. In fact, I'm reviving all of my dead, all of everyone's, into a world of meaning. Thought I'd share the good news. Thank you, Pixar. What is going on in this movie? Little fires walking around, confused but in awe, like they're out of my poems. Clouds walk through you until my daughter asks what baby is crying, And the answer is an air baby. An air baby. What wonders? Both speaking Firish, say the subtitles. Welcome to your new life. Another upside down tarot star. Forgetting the soul's purpose as if that's a bad thing, as if my pouring out of water back into the sky is not the most divine theft. A text thread of preschool parents just warned us about the squirrels in a nearby park. A hex against the pauses in poetry, and in the writing of poetry. Be there no more pauses henceforth. Preparation. We bought so many rubber bands. A lifetime supply. We could constrain anything. Thank you for alerting us is the text that literally just overlapped this poem, re the park squirrels, and then receded back to its floating circle, pious and pores. My toddler hiding behind my back just now from something in the movie once said the sun is walking the moon like a doggy. Forgetting again is the point. I waver in and out of my belief in magic. You can't always tell, and then you can always tell in my writing. Example, my daughter is also writing in this notebook with a wooden dowel, and you can tell. Example, the most profound thing she said is what she hasn't. Now choose. I have. I've arrived at a new way of love. Thanks.
Oh, that was so good. Thank you so much. We do actually have one more person for the open mic, Julian Martinez. I'll go ahead and spotlight and start whenever you'd like.
Hey, what's up, y'all? I'm at work. I got my radio on in case anyone radios me. So if I'm a supervisor, so I shouldn't be. I'm just gonna get to it. I don't have a lot of time, but this is really fantastic, and y'all are incredible poets. I'm gonna read a couple new ones. I like 3 shortish new poems. This first one's called "My First Memory." I was sobbing and hyperventilating behind some poor stranger's movie theater seat. E.T. the extraterrestrial shone in the blackness, glistening fingers like 100-foot turds stretching towards me. I will remember rows of knees. I will remember popcorn reaching up for handfuls as quick as possible so as not to be spotted by the monster. I won't remember the vomit or the fever or the stuttering afterwards. I will remember it lasting forever, this silvery dark. I will remember the opening of glass doors into a rainy parking lot, my body snotty and small in an auntie's arms. I'm feeling like I've lost a game and want my first movie to restart. I feel like I ruined the fun. This next one's called GTA. That's how I'd describe it, bird's eye view. Couldn't tell you the inside of the Oscar Mayer Wienermobile. I had 4 out of 5 stars at the top of my vision by some helicopters. Chief Keef on the radio was laughing harder than the people on the crosswalk screamed at the Wienermobile plowing past them. A squad car swerved in front of the orange dick, and I watched my body crash through clouds of fire and flesh, then onto pavement, then standing and sprinting. But once I was on a motorcycle and the cartoon stars blinked towards my freedom, I felt it. I'd lost the best job I'd ever had, Kraft Heinz hot dogger, and had to find my way back to campus in time for foosball practice because my friends were really counting on me. And here's the last one. I wrote it today, and it's based on a pretty recent internet meme called, well, not called, but someone posited that Fidel Castro invented the Euro step. The basketball move. This has been debunked, but it's really hilarious because there's like photos and videos that they're like, this is him inventing the Euro step. Anyways, he did not. But this poem's called "If Fidel Castro Really Invented the Euro Step." I could have used his basketball moves when me and my best friend were zooted after school and wrestled out our frustrations in his basement. Him pretending for some reason to be Winston Churchill, me pretending to be Fidel Castro. If I knew Fidel had been so agile on his feet, maybe I could have tapped into that and dodged the half Nelson. I was strong and had stamina, but not as light, which in hindsight would have been the opposite for Castro and Churchill. I wish I could tell you all the trash we were whispering, but we were so fucking high. I just remember breaking into wheezes of laughter, arms locked and weak on the carpet, trying to maintain these weird, corny accents because we had no clue how to talk about the weight of the free world falling fast upon us both. Thanks.
Oh, that was awesome. Thank you so much. I think anytime we get, I mean, the whole fucking thing was worth it when we get something that someone said they wrote today. I'll take that anytime. So yeah, I think thank you so much for all the readers. Thank you everyone for being here. I hope I didn't mess it up too much. There will be more of these. Keep on the lookout, and probably people here and everything. You'll probably be getting another invite from me to be part of these even later. But yeah, thanks a lot to everybody. I think if anybody has anything else to say, they can go ahead. But I think beyond that, we'll go ahead and get out of here. I'll give everyone a second if they have something to say, but
Yeah, thanks so much for tuning in. This was great. Love the open mics too. Julian, those endings are killer. And yeah, Mike, I need that manuscript in progress. That sounded incredible. Thanks, Barton.
oh, absolutely. Thank you.
Just a thanks. I appreciate the invite, and hope the tech issues. Well, I did that for you so that I would mess up worse.
Well, I appreciate that. No, I honestly was not a big deal at all, and everything that came after that made me forget everything that happened previous. So it was great. You did a great job. And hope y'all have a great Sunday, and hopefully I'll see all yet more of these later if I can get it all together.